in the grand scheme of things, it's like once a year to be able to get some good advice is actually not a huge cost versus the benefit.
After my wife and I got married, she was running a summer camp, and I became the de facto CFO really quickly. And that's when I got pushed/jumped into running everything finances related for the company. Then led me to the next step, which was the adulting step of actually filing taxes. After going to a tax professional, I said to myself, I'm not going to pay someone to do this. I could do this myself. And then I became an accountant. Which is not what most people do, and I don't recommend it necessarily.
Yeah, I was going to say, now you realize why we have trouble providing a good level of service, but I've scratched my head with the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, now I've finally reached the point in my life where I don't do my own plumbing or other type of contractor work. I make sure to get professionals. So now I'm on the other side of that and understand it a lot more. But that's how I got interested. I took a small course on federal income tax prep, and everything just really snowballed from there. I've always been running my firm on the side as a side gig since 2019. And this past year in December was when I made the jump to be running my firm full time, just me, no boss except for all of my clients, which is like 100 bosses.
That's right.
And it's been a really great experience. There's something I tell new tax pros in getting into the industry is right now, what's really nice is it's really a build your own future, choose your own adventure type landscape in the accounting world. There's so much work that needs to be done, and there's so many ways to do it, and so many clients that need help in very specific ways that are different than other clients provide service. So, their clients, get provided service. So every accounting firm really has their own, not even niche, but own way of doing things. And therefore there's no greater time than right now.
Yeah. So, okay, talk to me, elaborate on that a little bit. I'd love to kind of hear more, double click on that a little bit for me in terms of what you see the opportunities are.
One of the things I always think about is how the weakest link in any closed system for what we're usually doing is most of the time the client. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We can't expect our clients who are professionals in other areas to professionals in everything tax and account related. If you're a therapist, then you don't know what QBI is necessarily, or you don't understand the complicated calculations that go into it. So we have the opportunity to go ahead and provide that expertise, but according to how the client needs it provided. One of the things I always think about is how everyone said AI, is going to take away everything. It's going to take away all our jobs. And yet here we are, and anybody could prompt ChatGPT. And that is the point. Clients need to prompt ChatGPT. My wife was just talking to me last night. I'm working on a project, and my wife said, "Oh, why don't you just use AI to do this?" And I said, that would still require me to find the right AI, figure out what I need to request, figure out what the output should look like, and then make decisions. If I get a professional, they're the ones reaching out to me and saying, okay, I know exactly how to navigate your needs and provide that solution. And that's what we're doing in the accounting world. When I get a new bookkeeping client, they have no idea that what inventory management is, or cost of goods sold is, or how it affects their tax return or financial management. And I'm the one who, with that foresight, so we're able to provide service in a way that can lift the client up, so they can, like I always tell my clients, I say, I want you to be good at what you're good at, and then leave the other things to me, and then we'll work together on that way you can lift your business up to the best.
Yeah, no, and I just want to, I say the same thing to folks. Obviously I'm on the AI side of the fence too. And I'm also like, guys, we built this for accountants, not for consumers. Like even if it's 99% accurate, you'll end up with a mistake on almost every return. There's like over 100 fields on a typical return. So, it's a trust thing. And then let me say it a different way too, because I think there's a few different things, and you kind of touched on this as well. Look, at the end of the day, like they have other things to do. So let's imagine like you're just like, I'm going to use AI for this. Okay. Well, most tax advice is conditional based on like their level of income or what state they're in, or like if they run a business, that kind of thing, right? So even this simple thing like how can I save on taxes? Like most common answer is probably retirement of some sort, like 401k or some sort of deferred um, tax on retirement. Well, those options depend on how much income you have and what type of income you have. So if you can do a SEP or a solo 401k, right? If you go, Schedule C or S corp. My point there is like nothing is simple in taxes. Nothing. This is why it takes us so long to respond to emails. So you can prompt it
Right.
and you could actually get the answer. But do you know if it's the right answer? Probably not. And
Right.
then I'll say it a different way too, because I think, and you and I talked a little bit about price at one of the conferences that we were at. The other thing that I say to people is like, so, okay, let's imagine like we deal with it typically either a complex or high income person. And the whole industry does, right? Like that's kind of what we tend to service. Because if it's super duper simple, like you're probably going to use TurboTax or something. And at the end of the
Right.
day, like if you're making $150,000 or whatever, you can pick any number, right? And let's assume maybe even that you're like not that complex, paying $500, it's like an average cost for a return or $700, whatever the number is. In the grand scheme of things, it's like once a year to be able to get some good advice is actually not a huge cost versus the benefit and you and I know this. Like, yeah, I had someone this year that I worked with carefully about materially participating in real estate, like saved him almost 40. And that guy pays me like $2,500 a year. So I'm
Right.
pretty good for 20 years. I told him he owes me for the rest of my life now. He's a buddy of mine. I wouldn't normally tell a client that, but I was like, you were always buying drinks from here on forward. But there's value. And I just want to say that for the folks out there, because there are people that worry about like, oh, is AI it's not, guys. It is, we built this, we look at AI systems all day long and we chose to build this for accountants because that's where it is today. It's great. And if you use ChatGPT, said a different way, like it's amazing at like brainstorming, right? It's amazing at rewriting an email when you give it the content to rewrite. Like it's really good at some tasks. You're not just going to have it do everything, right? Like everyone can have their own example of like things that it just does where it's hilariously wrong. I find in the tax world, it's a lot about context. And I tell people like gathering the correct context and then evaluating whether or not these systems are giving the right recommendations is going to be a long job for folks, for sure. And then also it's about behavior change, because the reality is even if I tell that person that like, hey, you're not maxing your 401k or whatever it might be. It's a very simple example, but let's just use it. I still have to like convince them to go do it. And if they're doing it on GPT or something, like it's not going to be as impactful at changing behavior. Right. And in the long run, not to go like way, but our industry will be about not just making good recommendations. That part's going to get easier, but it's going to be about following through to make sure that they did the things to take advantage of those recommendations, right?
Yeah.
And that is like where I see us spending a lot of time, because humans are difficult to redirect.
Right.
And so we'll spend a lot of our time there. But anyways, I just wanted to echo what you said on that front. How do you do that with folks? Like, how are you working with clients? Like, what do you find to be most impactful there in terms of that relationship with clients?
It's a good question, because sometimes it's as simple as making the right recommendations and getting them to save money. But sometimes it's also as simple as catching them up on 4 years of tax returns. And now they are super relieved. I just had that. I just finished like someone gave me, it needed 21 through 2024, including sales tax returns starting this year. And we finally finished everything and to be completely done. And now I have the opportunity to say, hey, you're running your business this way. Let me show you why instituting real bookkeeping is going to not only save you money, but make you so much more money. Because we were going through a spreadsheet and every other line, it was like, oh, that person actually didn't pay me the full amount yet. And how are you keeping track of that? Oh, text messages. And we're able to provide that service. And the reality is there's a great joke of maybe you're familiar with this one, the guy accompanying his friend to the train, and then they say, oh, hey, let's let's go get some drinks before the train gets here. And
Yep.
and they go to get drinks. They miss the train. They're all upset. They said, "Fine, let's wait for the next one." But while we're at it, let's go get some drinks. And they go get some drinks. His friend misses the second train again. And finally, the third time, they realize, okay, we're not going to miss this train. His buddy has got to get back home, and they get back to the train station, and the train is finally there, and the friend runs on. Meanwhile, he wasn't even supposed to get on the train. And so the lesson of that is don't go ahead and you can't want it more than them. So we do have to go through the process of getting our clients to, number one, self-select by putting up specific boundaries. Hey, if you're not willing to pay my deposit or pay the invoice according to the terms that I set, you're not my client. If you can't provide information in a timely fashion, we need to put up those boundaries. You're not my client. But when you do provide those things, I'm going to be so helpful. And by the way, here's like the almost like the secret for anyone listening to this that's not a tax preparer. If you are a good client, what I would call an A or A+ client, you pay your invoice on time, you ask questions in an orderly fashion, not all over the place, you respond to questions in a timely fashion, you could probably call your accountant at any time and they will answer the phone and answer questions and not charge you. But it's because constantly being inundated with what I would call the D and the F clients, the clients that we need to fire, that we get stuck in this vortex of having to provide the most effort for the people that are giving us the least value. So it's important to keep in mind, hey, what we're doing really affects people's lives. Back when I was this camp with my wife, this summer camp, the thing that I learned, and my wife and I had just gotten married. I was really fresh to the world of finances in general and personal finance. And I saw how for the parents to write those checks to pay us for that week of camp, it was a big deal. There was a lot of emotion behind it. And here we are like the surgeons of the finance world, making sure everyone, the doctors of the finance world, making sure everyone stays compliant and healthy and saves money. And it really affects people's world and totally changes the trajectory of their life. And it sounds almost silly, but hey, remember back in COVID when the government was giving out PPP loans, and guess who needed to help out with those? All the accountants. All the accountants were the ones helping get that emergency funds where it was needed most in the right way. So, we can't underestimate what we're doing and how we're providing that service, because it really is a big deal.
And going back to your comment about the DNF clients, well, one, I 100% agree. Like, people should be firing clients, and there's, I know that's been mentioned for quite a while, but honestly, it should be mentioned in almost every podcast. It's just like, hey, reminder, hey, whoever was driving you crazy 2.5 weeks ago on the 15th because they hadn't sent their stuff in, and on the 14th, you're still dealing with them. My mom has a guy that has submitted his stuff on the 14th or the 15th. She's like retired, but she has, she's kept, I think like 15 clients basically. Okay. And I don't know why she's kept this guy, but he still submits his stuff on the 14th or the 15th every year. And I was like, Mom, and I'm also like, hey, you could make a mistake, or like he could file late. Like, it's just, none of it's good. But but anyways, it's funny. I also am pretty direct with clients too when I'm meeting them for the first time. And actually, we haven't taken, I stopped taking new folks when I was building Juno. One, because I couldn't find staff, and then later because I was building Juno. But when I interview them, and by the way, that's what I would call it, right? Like, it's not like I'm not there to sell them. I'm just like, are you going to be a good client? And I'm just like, hey, what happened with your last accountant? If they had a last accountant, and they'll give me a story, and I think to myself, like, they're probably going to say the same thing about me, right? Like, we are at the mercy of their behavior. At the end of the day, I don't have any of their information. So I need them to organize it, give it to me, make sure they don't forget stuff, give me enough time to actually get their return done. And those are the types of things that I will be clear about. Like, hey, this is what a good client looks like for me. Like, turn your stuff in on time, respond to my emails. Like, I'm not like soliciting. It's like, I'll send you an email 3 times a year, but I just actually like look at it and read it for 1 minute. You know what I mean? Just heads up. And if it's not completely relevant to you, then you delete it. If it is, like, you might miss a planning opportunity that could save you a lot of money. And That's where our value is. But anyways, you got to filter through those folks for sure. And it's funny that you said this, but you do spend more time on those. You kind of said that quickly, but what's sad is
Yeah.
they can often be most of your time. And but my nice folks, I will respond to them in like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh hey, because they.
Right.
Yeah, I even had people. I bought a practice one time from a CPA that had passed away, and he had like the nicest people, and our whole staff was like, how did he do this? This is incredible. And people would just be like, thank you so much. Like, this has been so easy this year. Like, I just really appreciate you doing my return for me. And then part of that is
Yeah.
because we picked it up, and it was like he had passed away right before tax season, and
Mhm.
unfortunately. And so they were just grateful that like someone kind of helped them out. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I've never been thanked for this before. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it
And it's
just sent me
not,
a thousand of invoice.
and it's not necessarily even the physical amount of time that these clients take. It's the mental and physical energy that
Yeah.
gets drained from us. That's
Yep.
the thing. I'm a huge believer in energy
Yeah.
exchange. And when I have a really good interaction, I am empowered to go do the next thing. And when I have a really not great reaction
Yeah.
or you know, interaction with somebody, it is the worst thing. And for me, like I'm a ruminator, and that sort of like helps when it comes to like figuring out a really complex tax thing, because then I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it and I'm reading up on it. And when it
Yeah.
comes to emotional things, I'm just reliving that moment again,
Yeah.
and it takes so much mental energy. And that's sort of the end of tax season now. I put a list together of the last 10, 15 returns that I just had to get out the door, be done with. And I put it on in an envelope in my pocket. And I said, this is the thing I constantly mentally keep on thinking about.
Yeah.
But now I need to finally take that thought and put an action towards it, because otherwise I will be
Right.
like plagued by the things that I haven't just done yet. And
Yeah.
it's those clients that give us the most amount of stress. And
Yeah.
it's not worth it. It's not worth it for us. It's not worth it for our firm. And it's certainly not worth it for our family that relies on us.
Yeah. Well, and it's not worth it for the other clients that are great, by the way, and like also don't get
Yep.
served really well because of some of those folks. And I do the same thing. So like if I have an emotional response when I see someone's name in my inbox, or God help me, a couple of my clients, they will text me. Not many. I am like, I will literally say back to them, like, text is not a work channel for me. So please like go back to email, because
Yeah. Yeah.
my family has a text thread, and like I will lose your text and I will forget to
Yeah.
respond to you. So this is going to be frustrating for you too, because I do work in my text messages. Like, please just email me.
Yeah.
But when I have that like visceral response, and I'm sure every person here is like knows a name that if it popped up today, you just be like, oh man, come on. And if I do that, they are on my bad fit list. And I will, at the very least, because I have a couple of those guys that are just complicated. So they're actually not, it's not because that they're necessarily a bad client, but actually what I'm going to do this year, I have a bad fit list, and we do that. And then those people we let go. But the what I do with the other folks is like it's a good time to check in and keep on just like, hey, this year was a little bumpy. Like, here's what I need from you to do my very best work next year. You know what I mean? And it's just set expectations again. Now they're probably gonna
Yeah.
ignore that, and I'll have to keep doing that every year. But anyways, I know that exactly that emotion that you're talking about, and it happens too often. Honestly, it happens a lot around October 15th. I find it's a lot of my folks that
Yeah.
have like ones that are coming late,
And
and then
sometimes,
get their stuff super late.
right, like what you're describing there, I think it's really important to expand on. It's not always necessarily the client's behavior. It might also be the area of tax law. If it
Yeah.
stresses you out, I mean, I have this. I have one client with a nonprofit. Have I done nonprofit returns before? Yes. Did I do any this year except for that one? No. Do I still need to
Yeah.
get it done? Yes. And 11/15 is
Yeah.
coming up. And it's stressful because now I have to take on a whole new subject matter and delve into a completely different world. It's hard enough going from one 1040 to another, but going from a
Yeah.
1040 to a 990 is
Right.
just, it's
Different
unfamiliar
world.
territory. And
Yeah.
our brains don't do well adapting to that, which is why I'm a big fan of sticking with what you're good at and then really honing in on that, because then you have the opportunity to replicate it a bunch of times. And not only, and it's not just about the making money, it's about providing value to those clients. And you're going to do a much better job at it. And then in
Right.
essence, that the money will flow, that appreciation will come in the form of dollars.
Yeah. So one of my staffers said to me, and they were saying this about Juno, but I think it applies to exactly what you were talking about, which I thought was funny. Um, just like the like mental dissonance of like having to she was talking about double checking numbers basically over and over again and making sure that she hadn't like typed in a number incorrectly or put it in the wrong place. But the same is
Yeah.
true, we do the same thing on 990s. We do like 10 of them or 15 of them per year. They're the same ones, so like we know how to do it, but at the same time, like we're just not good at it. And for those all like some exceptional, situation where it's like, oh, it's a bigger client, but they do have this one nonprofit. If we give up the nonprofit, are they going to leave us? But I'm with you on specialization. Like it's because it's also just the load that you carry mentally if you're looking at
Yeah.
something for the first time.
Yeah.
And I haven't done this, but I will call it out that I thought well, actually, sorry, I have done this year on like an R&D credit, and I did it with a cost seg study where I did go to a partner and was like, hey, can you do this? There's a firm that I met them through Juno, but a firm that I've worked with where I just was like, hey, I want to throw you some stuff. Like, don't steal my clients, please. But there are times where I don't want to like, cost seg study. I just haven't done one before. I'm not going to go and do that. But this person has enough real estate that I was like, there might be something here where it could save you some money. And I do think that's the best practice. And I know obviously, you've seen you a few shows this year, and I know you're a good networker. I wonder if that's something that you'll have set up at some point or have set up in terms of just that network. Because people talk about also like bouncing off complex questions. I find like
Yeah.
I haven't had to do that as much, but
Yeah, being part of an association has been really helpful for finding those subject matter experts. I just had a big issue with in the state I was working on, and came up with a really complex question. I found someone who was an expert, and she was able to help me. The funny thing is, I was dealing with the lawyer who was finalizing the estate, and the lawyer, turns out lawyers do not know tax law at all.
yeah,
Or at least some of them. And
some of them, yeah.
This lawyer, he's an experienced estate attorney, but he just did not understand how a 1041 worked. And I was like going a little crazy because I'm like, I think I know what I'm talking about. I have done continuing education before in 1041. So I checked in with her with the state accountant, and she's an expert at this, and she was able to confirm with me and help me out. And then of course I came up with like some really niche issue, and I had to figure it out on my own, and I posted about it. Nobody had an answer, and finally I sort of figured it out on my own. So, but even just having the ability to ask the question, sometimes that's enough to help us like figure out the answer. But yeah, having a network association, be it either some sort of credential association like AICPA, NAEA, anything like that. Just there's some good Facebook groups out there. The reputable ones, and careful what advice you get. But it always, do your own research after the fact. But there's a lot of people to get network from and get more information for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and as you're thinking of like other pros out there, and I think it's cool. It's like you pursue learning, I think, more than a lot of other people I've met. And I don't mean that in a negative way towards other people, but you run into a lot of folks that are like, I've been in there 20 years and I was like size firm and stuff. Then I popped out here and I'm kind of doing the same thing. I think what's really cool about you coming in a little later in your career is just that you've had to become a learner basically, right? And you continue to do that. Any other resources you'd recommend for folks or tips for the trade?
Sure. I think it's really important to practice doing returns. And that could be even getting ChatGPT to like spit out a scenario, and then you prepare the return based on that, and then try to just think about what difference does it actually make. I'm also a huge fan of reading the instructions. It really does not compare. You can order from the IRS, done this. You can order the forms and instructions. And what I'll do is I will grab one of those. I will put away my phone. I'll go outside and just go outside with the instructions and read it from start to finish. And being able to do focused, like deep work like that, it actually helps you find a lot of information you otherwise wouldn't come across. But besides for all the regular stuff of taking continuing education and going to workshops, etc., but keeping focus. I think in today's world, if you pass by a guy at his desk staring at the space, you're assuming he's spacing out, and people forget that the discipline of learning sometimes takes thought, which does look funny from an outsider's perspective, but that's okay. So my advice is give yourself an opportunity to do some deep learning and do some deep thought. without any distractions, not at a computer, even though I'm a big fan of, reading things on a computer and not printing stuff out. But sometimes it's so worth it to just go analog and just do some deep thinking.
Yeah.
Conclusions that you'll never have necessarily thought of before, or connections that you're going to make because you're giving your brain the opportunity to breathe and really think.
I know that a lot of times you're trying to move so fast that you can forget that, right?
Yeah.
Like try to just move on to the next thing. Yeah, that is really interesting. And yeah, I actually just want to say too on the instructions, it's it's funny, you really do forget that, but I've also done the same thing in the last year where I was looking at something and I'm like, you know what? I'm actually just going to go read the actual instructions for this. IRS has like tons of instructions out there. And I was like, oh, they do actually do this and actually give you some like examples of how it can be applied. It's like, wow, who even knew? I haven't read IRS. And,
exactly.
I'll use like a research tool or something, but I was like, you forget that they actually just want people to know what the rules are. And they put it out there. So
I recently, my youngest brother just got engaged. He's getting married next month, and his future father-in-law actually works for the IRS. So at the engagement party, we were talking shop, and turns out this guy is the guy that writes the instructions.
No way. Okay, well, if you leave his contact information in the
chat.
Yeah, exactly.
We were talking, and I said, so which instructions? And I'm like, the 1040. It's like, no, the 1040 guy sits next to me. I work on form 1116. I'm like, so I said to him, I hate that form. He looks at me, and goes, exactly. Me too.
No doubt about that. That's an interesting one. No, that is funny. Good old foreign taxes,
Yeah.
It always trips me up too because it comes up on a brokerage statement or something, and I'm like, foreign taxes, like just for just a minute. I'm always like, where, why?
And it's always for like for $223, or like
if even that, it's like $8 or something, and I'm like, come on, or whatever. Well, our system is like the diagnostic, right? Yeah.
Right. Like, why are we even dealing with this right now? Is it worth it? Yeah.
There's some diagnostic that's like, even if it's under the threshold, it's just to me like there is foreign tax. And so like, I forget if it's like, you can elect not to file. Like there's something.
I think it's like 300 or 600 that you can elect to not file the 1116. And it's just one of those like niche things. And then you come to the circumstance where you're like, oh, I actually have to file an 1116. And part of what one of the things, one of the things I think about all the time is in continuing education courses, they'll give you concepts, but then they forget to, like, there's no opportunity to connect it to an actual return being prepared.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I am working on is I want to start giving continuing education. And my goal is that anything I'm going to give continuing education on is going to come with a complete and full practice return.
Yeah, right.
Then the students can go ahead and that information, input it, and then see in real time the things that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because I tell this to people studying for the enrolled agent exam. There is so much information that's theoretical, but the thing is almost 99% of what we do is not theoretical. It's extremely practical. We always have to remember to bring it back to preparing the actual forms, which, by the way, from a software perspective, I'm a big fan of form-based software because that's what we're dealing with all day.
Right.
That's my, in my memory palace, line 39 is where the total taxes are for the firm in Maryland. I'm not just going to remember it because of its name. I'm going to remember it for its place.
Right.
So that's another just little thing that I more appreciate.
No, completely. I've never seen a CPE course do that, by the way. They think about that for a second.
I know. And I'm like,
I have done an insane amount of hundreds and hundreds of hours of CPE, and I've never seen someone actually do that.
When I drop website, I will be sure to let you know.
Okay. Well, okay. Give us the, when you launch the website, how do people follow you or find you?
So you can find me on social media, either under name Yehuda Tenenbaum on LinkedIn or on X at Y10 Tax. That's Y10 TAX. Because my name is Yehuda Tenenbaum, and I tell people that's 10 like the number 10. So Y10 Tax. Otherwise, I'm very active online, LinkedIn. I'm even on Facebook because that's where all the accountants are.
I know. I just activated my Facebook page the other day. I was like, I have not been here in like 15 years.
It's been a long time. Make all those. You got to curate. Go back for all the posts you posted.
Because I'm like, do I post pictures on Facebook. I was like, no, I don't want to post more pictures. But I'm like, I look like I'm 22 basically in all these pictures.
Yeah, that's where they all are, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm always open to discussion. If anybody wants to reach out to me, y10tax.com. My contact information is there as well. I'm always open to discussing, talking to new tax pros or even seasoned tax pros. I love having these discussions. I love talking shop, and so that's what I'm here for. But certainly, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm the type of person that actually does respond usually.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I think, people, to see at conferences and things like that too, because I know you do a good job of, networking at all those events.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really appreciate it and the insight. And we'll continue to follow along and let me know when that CPE is ready. I'll be setting up for you. I'd love to see that. I want my whole too, right? Think about that. Like new people taking whatever 1031 exchange would be a great one, by the way, because it happens always like, what do I do?
How do you do it?
And then launch a whole
or the dreaded Roth conversion. Those forms are so complicated, and there's a million different lines that look the same, and so something like this would solve that. So
I'm signing up. You got me sold on that. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate it. And people know where to find you then from here. Facebook.
Yes. Right. Anywhere else. Great to hang, Dave.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good to see you all.